folks, Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the Chris Voss Show.com. Hey, we start coming here with another podcast, and we're bringing you tech news today, or the week for this week, and I'm bringing you the illustrious Fred Davis. How you doing, Fred?
Hey, pretty good, Chris. How about you?
Good, man. Good. Tell us where we can catch you on the interwebs so people can look up your Twitter accounts and websites and things like that.
I'm Fred Davis everywhere, except G+ wouldn't give me that name, even though I was the first to sign up. But Twitter, Fred Davis. LinkedIn, Fred Davis. Facebook, Fred Davis. Keeping it simple because I was on those services day 1 or 2.
Now, back in the day, you used to run a couple different tech mags, didn't you?
I was in the publishing business for a while. The first one was A+, which was an Apple II magazine, which was the computer that started the whole PC revolution and definitely made a big impact on me. I got to know both the Steves and a couple other people who worked at Apple very early on, like Daniel Kottke and Chris Espinosa. And so I kind of watched Apple grow up. So A+ magazine was my first one. I was editor-in-chief of Macworld for 2 days. And then Steve Jobs had them remove me from the publication because he got pissed at me, which is typical Steve stuff. So Ziff Davis, where I worked, went out and bought me Mac User so that we could have a Mac magazine. And I managed to drag that ahead of where Macworld was in search and advertising before I got yanked off to PC Magazine and rehab all the Ziff Labs. So I was not only editor of A+, Mac User, PC Magazine, and PC Week, but I either started or revamped the labs for each of those properties. And, you know, in the old days, people reviewed things seriously. We spent a lot of money on that. We spent $10 million a year on lab testing so that we could have real results to show people where we're talking about products. And nowadays, it's all just BS and what somebody thinks. And so little research goes in. And so little attention to what the consumer needs goes in. It's basically you get into religious debates about what side of the fence you are on without actually taking a hard look at the products and the technology the way we used to.
I love stirring the pot on my Facebook. Me and we love stirring the pot. It's always fun to poke it.
So when Bill Ziff sold the company, I had no reason to be there because he was my mentor. So I stole Ziff's idea and went over to CNET, where CNET originally started as a TV channel or a cable network. Actually, Ryan Seacrest was on one of our shows, but it wasn't working out economically, so I pulled Shelby Bonnie and Halsey Minor, the other two people on CNET. I said, this is the least original idea I've ever had. Let's just rip off Ziff Davis and do it on the web. This is 1995. Most people didn't know what the web was about. So I told them, look, imagine if you only had to print one copy, and then everybody came over to your place to read it. Goodbye printing, goodbye distribution, goodbye newsstand, goodbye circulation renewal campaigns, and it was like, boom. So that's what CNET ended up doing, and I seeded it with all the best people from Ziff Davis, because it's a lot easier if you pick the salesperson who was calling Michael Dell last week saying, PC Magazine's the place you ought to be, and this week they're saying, you know, CNET, it's the internet. You'll find out news tomorrow or today instead of a month from now. So that was a lot of fun. And but content on the web is in really dire condition because people don't want to pay for quality content, it seems. So they get.
Well, why don't we talk about one of the key topics this week that came up in regards to that, the GigaOM bankruptcy, or officially bankruptcy.
Yeah, that was extremely surprising. I mean, Malik had done a tremendous job with that site. It was a very well-respected site. I mean, he's considered one of the top analysts in the fields that he tracked. My gut feeling about this is that they got in over their head with the conferences. I've seen that happen before with media companies, where they have a good media company going, and then they go, let's get into the conference business. We charge people thousands of dollars for a couple of days and end up losing a lot of money on it, even though they charge that much. I remember Jim Fawcett from Fawcett Publishing. He ran into the same problem. He had a great publishing media business going and then tried to get into the show business, and it sunk him. So I'm wondering if all of the GigaOM shows didn't distract the company from their original content mission. And I'm sure they could have sold high-end analyses and position papers to corporations and the way that you know, a research firm does, and probably have spent that money on that rather than the shows, and maybe they would have stayed in business. I mean, I don't know the financials. It seemed like they were pretty dire if they went bankrupt and they had already taken in lending.
22 billion.
Yeah. So, what happened to that money? Obviously, burn rate was getting out of control.
Now, my understanding, or the way I read it from one news source, was I don't know if he stepped aside, but he seemed to have joined the venture capital company that bought him out as an advisor. So I don't know if he stepped aside from it. Did he step aside, or was he still running it?
It's kind of unclear. I know the what was it? It was it Red Herring or Upside that also went bankrupt and then got bought out by a VC, and then they spun it out again. And I know that happened to Forbes. Forbes got bought. It was Roger McNamee's group that bought Forbes and then trying to do a turnaround on it.
And then ReadWrite, I think, had a thing where they were up for sale, and then I believe Reg Snodgrass Company is working with it now, I guess, or something. So it's pretty interesting. I know that Recode has talked about how they're still struggling to find profitability, and they have some really award-winning people aboard that ship, especially with some of their latest content with some of the presidential politics stuff. And they do brilliant interviews too. I mean, they're the top of the class when they do those. But I had a conversation with some people. I'm like, Jesus, is tech news dying? Is it becoming? We becoming so overloaded with bloggers that are pushing their own opinion on things that it really doesn't matter anymore? Are the silos just dying more and more and more with everyone in the business?
Well, here's when I look at content as a whole across the internet, the only thing that's making money is the stuff that people would watch on TV or listen to on their stereo set or whatever. So really, the internet's main source of entertainment or content is still television. It's still very much TV-like things. Okay, so we can all hook up our Roku or Apple TV or Chromecast. I have all three, and stream a bunch of stuff and whatever. And then Google and Apple and Amazon are paying hundreds of millions of dollars to movie theaters, to movie studios and to music studios to get priority access to the music or the video. So that shows that it's like, the stuff that people paid for content on TV, like pay TV or watching shows, is pretty much the state that it's at. I mean, I really think the internet is really still in its diapers, and where it's going is so far ahead of what we think it is today that, I'm still waiting for it to get out of the television phase.
Well, let me ask you this. Some people have attributed the failure to mobile taking over, and people really aren't consuming long-page worded document, with text stuff on these mobile phones. They want to see video now. They want to see pictures now. They want to see the BuzzFeed crazy GIFs and stuff like that. And so a lot of people's comment is maybe they just didn't put enough of those. What's it called? Where you hook the links, you put the salacious titles in them and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, that was done by the newspaper business for a long time too.
Link baiting. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. Link baiting.
Yeah, I mean, BuzzFeed is kind of, it really isn't a news source, but they kind of are. But they're also a gun for hire, where they're basically working for advertisers. They're building those articles based on advertisers.
News in America today, especially online, is more about entertainment than it is about actual news or journalism or whatever. So people like to be entertained. So yeah, show me something entertaining, and then I can stop thinking about all the serious problems in the world and keep you distracted for a very long time, which is what TV has done for a couple generations, where most Americans were spending 6 or more hours a day watching TV. Now that's just become 6 or more hours a day looking at their phone or watching stuff on their computer. And instead of having nicely written dramas with something like Sorkin writing it, you get pictures of cats. Funny videos and stuff like that, because it's entertaining. So people gravitate towards what's entertaining, and the average person doesn't really think about the news accuracy or even care about it. They want to hear, to them, gossip is news. So it's very difficult finding where the future of news is going.
Yeah, for a long time, Mashable was really respected, and then they kind of became more of a lifestyle brand when CNN was rumored to buy them out back in South by Southwest one or two ago. And then I loved The Verge for a long time, and then it just kind of started to become more of a lifestyle brand and what they called it. I used to have a lot of the blog posts from the Chris Voss Show circulated through a site that used to give me a ton of traffic and syndication. And then they started posting stuff about Shark Tank and TMZ and celebrities, and now I've just...
I told you, gossip. It's what people weren't. That's why these stupid reality shows. I mean, and in some ways, Facebook is a gigantic reality show.
Well, YouTube's the same way. I mean, I've been posting what I thought is intelligent content or semi-intelligent content on YouTube for a while, and my joke has always been that I could post the most brilliant YouTube video. I could tell you where the secrets of life are, whether there's a God or not, which came first, the chicken or the egg, where the fountain of youth is, how to resolve every problem you ever have, how to be immortal. I can make a video about all of that. That will get like 20 views. But if I make a video of me pulling, I don't know, jamming, cinnamon down my asshole, then and shooting it out, then that's 10 million views right there.
Right, and it gets you on that vapid show about right this minute.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned from YouTube kind of put us through this. Like years ago, I used to make long form videos on YouTube, and we used to go into really big detail with phone reviews where we benchmark them, and we'd work with the camera and take photos, and we made these like epic freaking videos. And then they came out with this thing where they're like, well, it's not really. If people don't watch your video all the way through, we're going to penalize you. So if they drop out quick, we're going to penalize you and not give you as many views. Which pretty much everyone learned really quickly that you have to make short, stupid, succinct videos. Otherwise, you're going to get burned. And I have, of course, been burned on my money.
It's all about discovery. What's so horrible on YouTube is finding anything.
Yeah.
So I've found incredible things, great documentaries or shows like you're describing that I actually enjoyed quite a bit, even if they took a little while to watch. But that's, again, more like television. You're watching a longer show. The problem is, because Google emphasizes 3-minute length videos and gives them more rank, people are much more likely to discover short-form videos because it fits in better with YouTube's marketing plan and opportunity to have more advertisers when there's a greater diversity of videos. So, they cook the game, and as a result, it's very difficult to find stuff on YouTube. There's one guy who just curates stuff on YouTube, and YouTube is sending him a 6-figure check every month, just because helping sort people's videos out is such an added value.
So, what do you think about the Apple Watch? That's the other big thing this week.
Ugh. This proves that if you have a tremendous visionary and an incredible leader who is able to bring the entire company together to focus on innovation, you get groundbreaking, things that change to disrupt whole industries. Like the Apple II, you had to buy a mainframe for $250,000 to get that much horsepower for $2,000. The Mac, you used to have to get a Xerox Star, which was, $50,000, $70,000 thing to get that kind of experience. And even if Apple borrowed from the Star, the Mac was much easier to use and way friendlier. The laser writer, I mean, oh my God, the $6,000 laser writer, which seemed expensive, replaced $100,000 worth of electronic layout and typesetting equipment. Those old ATEX systems and other things that people were using. And it started not only disrupted publishing, on the desktop, it disrupted the entire publishing industry so that at this point, everything published is desktop published. That was a mega innovation. The iPod, it knocked Sony off the Walkman throne. It took over that whole market and allowed you to have a lot more music with you and reshaped the way that you bought and sold music and had a tremendous disruption in the music industry. The iPhone, brilliant. I saw that phone, and after having whatever, it was good to have a small phone prior to the iPhone. And the iPhone 1 was pretty small, but when you saw it and what it was doing, I said, this may not be the greatest phone in terms of the iPhone 1 because it has a few issues, but it is the most futuristic handheld computer that I have ever seen in my life. And the ability to run apps and do all of that sort of stuff in such a small device, it changed the way that phones are made. And you know, 7 years later, after the iPhone 1, it's pretty much the way that all phones are being made.
Yeah.
However, those were all Steve things, and Steve died. And I don't think Apple did the right thing when they went out to replace him. That what Apple needed was another visionary innovator who could lead the entire company and focus them on what they had traditionally been focused on, which is developing new and great innovations to the computer industry. That's why I love them. That's why I was a customer for 35 years.
Even after your job's kicked you out of your job.
Now all they're doing is iterating on Steve's stuff. We've got bunches of versions of the iPhone and the MacBook, and so their new thing, the thing that was going to prove that they were the innovative company that they were when Steve was there, is the Apple Watch, which I might call the Apple Botch. Because these guys, they were putting features in just to have features, not to really think it through. And in there, Apple is very insular. So you have to have not only do you have to have an iPhone for the thing to even really work, your iPhone has to be near your iWatch for the thing to even really work. So if it's not going to, if it's a kind of an accessory product, then the haptic feedback, is that good, or is that just going to make my wrist feel creepy? I mean, it depends on who you are. So it has things that are kind of like pretend innovations, but the Apple Watch isn't something like, well, the iPhone came out, everybody immediately realized, oh my God, something is new, this is amazing, where can I get it? And with the Apple Watch, it's like, well, there's a lot of wearables out there. They have had limited success. The best wearable, there's a lot of talk about alerts and being the new OS, if you will, or notifications. But the best device that for notifications that I ever used as a wearable was Google Glass. It was fantastic. I never missed a notification, and it was completely unobtrusive. I didn't have to look at my wrist or do anything. The notifications just popped up, and I could ignore them or look at them as I wanted. Now, Glass had so many other problems. I understand why they're redesigning it and trying to turn it around again. But you got to say, Glass was an innovation. That was the first device of its type. The Apple Watch is not, and it doesn't do a great job. I mean, why not just pick up my phone? I don't wear a watch since I've had a phone because I use my phone as a pocket watch, essentially, and I think a lot of people do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. I have the AT&T wearable watches they've sent me for all the Samsungs and everything else. We've reviewed all of them. And the problem is, like, half the time, it's not autonomous. You'll look at the notification, and it'll be like, do you want to see this on your watch or on your phone? And you're like, what do I need you for other than just to annoy me? I'll just look at my phone when it rings instead of you telling me to go look at my phone. That's really what's going on. Duplicity. I'm duplicating my workload here.
It's like I used to joke about fax machines. It's like you send somebody a fax and then you call them up and say, "Did you get my fax?"
And already, I mean, most experts agree, and most research agrees, these people use them for 3 months and throw them in a drawer.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference with the Apple Watch, and the reason that. So what Tim Cook and Johnny Ive decided to do to replace Steve, it was to promote themselves from within and transition Apple from an innovation-driven company to a luxury goods brand. They hired the highest-paid CEO, female CEO in the UK, the CEO of Burberry, to run the Apple stores. They've hired a lot of high-end designers into Apple to continue to perpetuate this luxury goods thing, because Apple is driven by profit. Like, there used to be this protest about corporations who made these outrageous profits, and people were talking about the 1% and all of this, and I'm going, well, Apple's the epitome of that. Yeah. Not only do they have more cash on hand than the U.S. Treasury does some days, but most of it's out of the country where they don't have to pay taxes on it. Apple is perhaps the most aggressive tax avoidance corporation in the U.S. and pays a minuscule amount of tax compared to other companies. Yeah. So they're cheating on their well, not cheating. They're highly avoiding taxes, so they're not paying back to the community that way. They're using Chinese labor, including child labor, so they're not trying to build it in America to do something good for people here or build it in some other developed nation where you know, they wouldn't have to have such shame over the way that things are built. And they're constantly cost reducing the product to increase the margin. I mean, I understand why Apple shareholders are cheering Apple. Oh my God, look at the profits. What confuses me is why their users are cheering this news, because it means they're getting ripped off. Apple is delivering them cost-reduced products using older generation technology, or making the choices like with the MacBook, only have one port. Second port would not have cost them that much. It would have made it tremendously more usable. It would have added a couple of bucks and eat away at their profit a little bit. And you think at $12.99, you're selling that as an entry-level, it's kind of premium price for an entry-level product. And then they give one port on it because it's too cheap to have two. There's plenty of room on that motherboard to stick in another port.
Plus, it's a 480p camera in the front. I couldn't stop
I know,
laughing.
480 camera, right. Even the iPhone has a 720p front-facing camera. My Nexus 6 has a 1080p front-facing camera and a 4K video camera on it. And this is what I mean. Apple cost-reduced their technology. You know,
and they can get away with it. And that's the thing that I argue with iSheep about, the people who think that Apple's is infallible. I'm like, do you really get what's going on? They are making a lot of profit. And I love how they'll brag about how, well, I buy products from the most profitable company in the world. That's like saying, I really appreciate getting ass raped by that prison.
I love the company that gives me less value for my dollar than anyone else.
It's just like, how, you're stupid enough to buy the product, and then you're happy that they're making a profit off of 2-year-old spec equipment.
I know, it's ridiculous. And I mean, the iPhone the same way. They totally cost reduced the iPhone.
Yeah.
That's why it still has the 8-megapixel camera and, you know, the 4.7-inch display on that expensive iPhone 6. I had that on a Moto X in 2013. It cost $350 off contract.
I was, though, impressed by the innovation they put into the iPhone 6 Plus. I mean, not all phones had that bendable feature. And, I mean, where you can customize it to bend to, you know, the way that you personally want it, I think that's innovation right there.
I tell you, my Nexus 6 is built like a rock. Now, the carriers got Android, but
I'll bet you can't bend it to customize it the way you want.
It's got a very tough industrial design.
Nice personalization. So what else happened this week that that moved your mind?
So we cover the stupid Apple products that came out this week. Another kind of interesting story that I noticed a few weeks ago, as soon as I read about it after the big New York toy show, is that there's an evil toy, a very, very evil toy that is coming onto the market. It's finally getting some pickup in the press this week, which is called Hello Barbie. And the idea behind Hello Barbie is that Barbie has Wi-Fi and can now carry on a two-way conversation with your child. How dangerous is that? I mean,
yeah. Most times I have those conversations.
They record all the children's conversations to figure out how to teach Barbie what to say to them in their next conversation. You know, you mentioned something about dancing. Barbie's telling you about dancing and whatever. So the huge social issue with this is you're teaching kids to love robots and tell them all your innermost secrets from a very young age. I'm kind of worried about where robots and AI could go, and I think having Barbie is so ubiquitous. 90% of girls between the ages of 3 and 10 have at least one Barbie. So the idea that there would be a talking Barbie, and Mattel goes, well, kids want to talk to their toys, and I go, yeah, and they do, and it's in their imagination, and that uses their mind and their creativity, and that's okay. But when you have a bunch of like data scientists and commercial people who are going to push their marketing agendas and their commercial agendas on little children in such a direct way, and a kid can't tell the difference between that and somebody who's really talking, you know, suddenly they've got a very insidious relationship with it. What happens? Lots of studies on Barbie show that it's really bad for women. It Kids who play with Barbies do pick lower careers. There's a lot of people who are anorexic because they try to have Barbie's figure, which is an impossible figure to have. So even without talking, Barbie was kind of a negative thing for kids. Now that she can talk, I can only imagine what she would say and what kind of mind control could go on, and what would happen if the company Toy Talk, who's doing the talking for Barbie, decides to push really commercial messages down their channel, and lots of kids have that. That would be really awful and really bad. By the way, since they record all the conversations, imagine what a hacker's delight it is if you could get in and hack the conversation and look at what was going on. A child molester database could just know exactly how to catch that kid because you know exactly what they were interested in.
Well,
so,
I think it was you posted today, or somebody I copied that was smart. The thing that someone is listening to the Siri.
right. Similar kind of thing where Siri's license says, you have to let us, nobody reads those licenses, you have to let us record all your calls for analysis and better voice recognition and whatever. So the Barbie is like that too. They claim that they're doing it for better recognition and whatever. And although Apple does it anonymously, things that people say might actually identify themselves, even if the username is blacked out.
I really don't want to be having a sexting call with my girlfriend being overheard by someone on Apple, and they're in a room with lotion. So say the words again. It's disturbing.
Yeah, I figured the NSA probably already has everything anyway, but I would like to at least feel like it wasn't widely commercially available.
It's just some kid in a room going, "Yeah, this is great. $10 an hour."
And people tell people things like their credit card numbers and things over the phone.
Oh.
So anyway, it depends what they're asking Siri about. It depends a lot of things, whether their voice is recognizable if it's a famous person.
Yeah.
It's the kind of stuff they hide in shrink wrap licenses, and it takes a while to dig up to figure what it really means. And by then, everybody's signed it, so it doesn't matter.
When I always play with my Barbies, the only voices I ever heard were the voices in my head.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
As long as it wasn't that one that always says, "Kill, kill, kill." My doctor says it's okay.
Funny you should say that, because another talking doll that came out just a little before Hello Barbie did get hacked, and the doll started saying, "I want to kill you, kill you, kill you." I mean,
oh, man.
Crap, the doll actually said that. I'll post a link to it or something. But these dolls have been hacked, and they can say very disturbing and troubling and potentially psychologically damaging things to the kids if just the Wi-Fi signal is hacked. And that's trivial to do. It's trivial.
You know what I would pay to have, actually, is a talking Barbie that would tell blonde dumb jokes.
Well, I'm sure if she has Wi-Fi, that would not be hard to hack into. You could just redirect where the Wi-Fi went.
I only blow guys who have Jaguars.
Like I said, Barbie's sexist enough. I mean, there's a real problem with Barbie that I have on a societal level, and this thing is a nightmare. And there's companies like Microsoft who are trying to figure out ways where we will love robots. Why is this a good area of research?
Don't they already have this thing going on in Japan? Like, I know they have the guys who love the anime pillows.
Mm-hmm.
They fall in love with pillows with an anime character on them, and they treat them like spouses.
Robots will be a slam dunk.
Yeah, robots will be a slam dunk, especially if you can have sex with them.
Yeah, there already are some sort of robot sex companions.
Well, I used to have a robot sex partner. It was my ex-wife. She used to just lay there and say something, but and she usually said, "Get off," and she didn't mean to finish. So I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, it was. So there was that. Anything else you want to cover? I know you gotta get into a call. I think don't you 1 o'clock?
I mean, I don't know if something you ever taught. I mean, I don't know how interesting the whole startup economy is.
What do you think?
Well, I coach a lot of startups and CEOs, and even now a few angel investors on what investments should be for the angel side or for the CEO. how they should deal with financing and the company strategy, and make sure they don't make a giant mistake early on that comes back to really screw them. And that they start a corporate culture right away and so forth. But I don't know if you saw the incredible rant that Dave McClure put on Twitter related to 500 startups.
No.
He was like going, "Oh, fuck these guys, these entrepreneurs, they won't, you know, they'll only take a deal that has a cap on it. We can't make any money if there's an early exit. And they'll refuse to say, if there's an early exit, you'll get at least 2 times your investment back." And usually an investor wants a lot more than 2 times their investment back.
Yeah.
So complaining that for a clause that says, hey, if you get sold or something, we deserve to at least share in that sale and not have it work out so we get screwed out of our investment, because that makes it less interesting to invest in companies. So it looks like so that's one problem. The other problem is there's so many angels and super angels that are funding startups right now that startups have this idea that they'll be able to get venture capital financing once the angel money runs out. And it's way easier to get money from angels than it is from VCs. And angels only have so much money. So when your company starts to get successful and you need access to large capital, people are going to be surprised, A, how much VC investment is going on outside the U.S., and B, how hard it is for them to get their companies VC financing because of the overabundance of startups and the overconfidence these startups have because of the fantastic terms they're able to get from angels, who are often not sophisticated investors and don't understand what a greedy entrepreneur might do. So there's dangers on both sides, and I think it's causing a real issue in the venture capital community.
So is it that the angels are just letting too many people into the system and everyone's getting caught in the thing? I know that Series A's have been an issue for a long time, past year or two.
Yeah, well, it catches a lot of the start. I mean, the things that piss the VCs off are both that they may not be getting their investment back, but a lot of the deal flow that they used to see early on is found by the angels because there's more of them. So they're not getting into companies in an early stage because they don't get the deal flow. So when they tend to come in, it's a later stage, and they have a whole bunch of different criteria to judge the company on when it's a later stage company. You know, if a VC or investor comes in, they're kind of projecting net future value of what that company might be. Once the company is up and running and the VC looks at it, they are looking at net present value, and they'll start to hold your feet to the fire about, hey, how many sales do you got? What's your customer acquisition cost? How many, you know, all those hard questions that angel may not have asked you that you may not have a really good answer for, and you might lose the round for that. And interestingly, had the VC come on board earlier, you might not be in that position.
Yeah. Well, it's good.
VCs are hated. So I understand why people don't like VCs, and it can work. But there's a company I've been consulting with called Synovus. It's a medical device technology company, and they didn't want to go to VCs. And VCs actually don't like medical devices because of the amount of inventory that they have to build up, and they're expensive, etc. So the CEO, you know, had this idea. Well, let's go out and equity crowdfund. So I built them a custom equity crowdfunding platform that leveraged on the idea that you could have qualified investors make a direct investment, or prior to the Jobs Act, you could have non-qualified investors make an investment via a self-directed IRA or 401k plan. So, you know, as of last month, they've raised over $30 million on an equity crowdfunding platform I built for them, which I think is a record crowdfunding raise on any type of platform. And Richard Schwartz, who's one of the top crowdfunding experts, he's a professor at Haas Business School over at UC Berkeley, just did a big case study about Synovus and this whole equity crowdfunding thing, and you know how not only did they raise $30 million, but they just came in with a valuation of $710 million.
Wow. So do you see that as a future way of crowdsourcing?
Well, I've never really believed in what, you know, I make a distinction between what I call reward crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding. So in reward crowdfunding, you're theoretically going to get a reward, a t-shirt or something, or whatever. But there's no accountability for actually getting you those rewards. You know, that's what I call the Oculus Rift. The rift between the users on Kickstarter who kicked in money to Oculus and are now really pissed off that when it sold for $2 billion, they didn't get anything. Some didn't get their goggles. Give me a break. There's no accountability. But if they had taken the same amount of money in that early stage of Oculus and bought shares at whatever that low price would have been at that time, when it sold for $2 billion, they would have been, woohoo, uncork the champagne, whatever. And they were deprived of that because the reward crowdfunding doesn't have accountability. It doesn't provide a way for people to get the value, the equivalent value of what they put in. So I think when the Jobs Act stuff gets approved and ordinary people can put real money into companies and have actual equity in those companies, that's going to be more fair to the companies. It's going to open up a vast new capital source to entrepreneurs. And I see that kind of future of equity crowdfunding where it's very inclusive for qualified investors, non-qualified through IRA and 401k, and non-qualified through the Jobs Act. That gives you a bunch of different capital sources. So I'm big on equity crowdfunding, and I'm down on reward crowdfunding, unless it's a major product.
Are there websites that like Kickstarter that cater to equity crowdfunding yet, or is that a new?
I mean, Angels List does, to the point that you can create a syndicate on Angel List, or that people can just get on Angel List and cruise startups and make investments, which does happen. But it's not a really organized effort to go out there and get the money in a way that could really be an alternative to venture financing. That's something that could raise that much money, so it wouldn't just be an angel, angel.co, but it would be something that had a lot more deals on it at a lot of different price points in a lot of different kinds of companies.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if they disrupt that in the future and make it happen.
Yeah, well, I got to believe that the American consumer, the new American dream is not a house in the suburb with a white picket fence. The new American dream is being in on a startup. So if the ordinary Joe and Jane Q citizen could go out and put $20 and own a little piece of some startup, they will go out and brag to all their friends, hey, I'm in this startup, or they'll spend another $100. I'm in these 2 different startups. And it'll be like bragging rights. They'll have those shares certificates framed and on their wall. And it's better odds than playing the lottery. Lottery tickets get up to $500 million.
Or gambling for that.
So for people, if you want to experience that, and I think there's this huge pent-up demand among American consumers to participate in that startup dream. And this would offer them a very inexpensive, low-risk way for them to get involved with that. And if they did hit on an Oculus or something like that, they could wind up getting a jackpot. That's a deserved jackpot because they have that amount of equity in the company, unlike the reward crowdfunding sites.
Most definitely. Well, Fred, it's been wonderful spending time with you. You are an insightful individual. I got to have you on the show more because you know your shit. I've been following all your stuff, and I like it. We think alike minds. You're like the one friend I have who's not an ice sheet going, I think you can cook today.
But people treat me on my posts about this like I'm somebody who never used like a Fandroid or something like that, and that I don't know anything about Apple. And apart from people who are still working for Apple for all those years, like Chris Espinosa, I don't think there's many more people who have owned more Apple products over a longer period of time and a bigger fan of Apple's for a longer period of time. But that was based on what they were actually doing and what the products that they were actually delivering. And to criticize them now, people think I just don't know what I'm talking about, rather than that, hey, this guy really understands Apple and he can see this trend towards the luxury goods company. I mean, explain Beats. So Apple has $3 billion to spend, they buy Beats. Google has $3 billion to spend, they buy Nest. Which was the more innovative purchase? I mean, Beats are luxury good items. They're horribly sounding, overpriced headphones that kids think they have to have because it's a status symbol. And that's what Apple is more focused on now, and that's sad.
Apple bought my ex-wife horribly overpriced luxury goods. Oh! I'm just kidding. So, Fred, it was wonderful to spend time with you. Give us your Twitter handle and the place to find you on the interwebs again, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay, I'm Fred Davis everywhere, so I'll be at Fred Davis on Twitter and Fred Davis on Facebook and Fred Davis on LinkedIn and quite a number of other services.
Be sure to stalk Fred Davis. He's a very smart thinker, and he's been around forever.
Thanks. Now I'm going to have to blush. But thanks, Chris. It's always a pleasure. I always enjoy talking with you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Fred. Thanks for going by. And be sure to give us a like, subscribe to us on the YouTube, and all that good stuff. Your parting thought for the day is goodbye.
Okay. We'll see you later.
All right, I think we're out.